After collecting her son's birth certificate, she becomes confused once more. Where is she and why is her son's birth certificate here? She can vaguely remember that she had a son who was all grown up now, into a man in fact. Francine decides to see if she can find any more information on her son and her whereabouts. Francine does this by slowly creeping up to the upper floor, where there are many bedrooms, a couple of bathrooms, and even the entrance to the attic is located here. Francine wanders down what feels like an endless hallway, until she comes across a door with a name on it. She can't quite make out the words, as if those words have been blurred out from her own eyesight. Desperate to understand her situation, she takes a deep breath and places her hand on the door handle. Francine begrudgingly presses down on the door handle, allowing the door to creak open. Once the door opens, Francine peers into the dark, dusty room, hoping to find some answers. It feels like the house shifts a little before she enters, and then her eyes adjust to the darkness. The wooden floor is nothing more than old wooden planks that creak with each step Francine takes. The walls have torn green wallpaper, and there appears to be several dolls, teddy bears, and toys lying around the floor, all damaged and covered in dirt and dust. Francine bumbles around the creaky floor, hoping that she won't fall through it, and makes her way over to a small white desk with a mirror. Francine peers into the mirror, but she can't quite make herself out. Maybe it's just too dark in here, she says to herself. On the desk lies another birth certificate. Francine picks it up and dots her eyes around it to quickly read the information. Her eyes slowly starts to adjust to a blurred out name on the certificate, which reads Emma Baker, the name of her daughter. With 2 birth certificates in hand, Francine decides to leave the room. While closing the door, she notices that she can finally read the name on the door, which says Emma. This room must have belonged to Emma, but who is she? Francine wonders. She tries to think if she even knows anyone with that name, but comes up blank. She can't really remember anyone's name right now. Upon leaving the room, she feels a shift under her feet, as if the very floor she's standing on is wobbling and moving around erratically. Within a matter of seconds, Francine finds herself in a completely different hallway. The structure in this hallway seems richer and more stable, with mahogany wood panels going around the bottom half of the walls, although with a number of scratches and dents running along those panels. The upper half of the walls are covered in a disgusting yellow wallpaper, with a variety of blanked out paintings strewn across. In this new corridor, Francine checks around numerous rooms and manages to locate a set of double doors with a column of mahogany at either side. She tries to open the door, but it's a bit stiff. She wiggles the door handle while trying to put her weight on the door to hopefully budge it open, but to no avail. With her hand still on the handle, she takes a step back and feels the door budge a tiny bit. Francine sighs, realizing that the door is pulled to open rather than push. Finally, she tugs on the door and it opens up into a master bedroom, complete with a huge bed, dressers and mirrors, a collection of wall ornaments, and what appears to be a side room. Something felt very familiar about this room to Francine, as if she'd been in this room many times before. Francine walks around slowly, taking in the magnificence of the room. A specific drawer on one of the dressers grabbed her attention. Without saying a word, Francine slowly walked over to the dresser, as if there was something inside, calling for her to come closer. She crouches down, her knees cracking like rusted gears trying to turn after years without use. Francine pulls open the drawer and finds some documents. She tries to look through them, but she can't understand the words, as if the ink on the documents has been smudged. After flicking through some of the documents, she comes across 2 documents that she can sort of read. Not all the information is clear, but she can make out what appears to be the birth certificates of a woman called Francine Baker as well as a man called Frank Baker. Francine still can't understand why she's here. Was she trespassing in someone's home? Could she be Francine Baker? After collecting these items, Francine feels light-headed, but also heavy with all the new questions arriving in her mind. She stands up, her knees cracking once again, and this time they feel weaker. Struggling to walk because of her knees, Francine fumbles out of the room and back into the corridor, where the house begins to shift. It's no longer a bright, peaceful and quiet home, and it now feels more lonely as the candles on the walls go out. How did it get this way all of a sudden? She thinks to herself. Cold, afraid and seemingly alone, Francine continues her travels across the top floor, constantly looking around for a source of light or some way out of this maze-like house. Eventually, she comes across the stairwell that leads down to the second and first floors. Unfortunately, it's blocked off by a gate. Francine tried shaking the gate. She pushes and pulls on it. Although it may rattle, she can't seem to open or remove the gate. Noticing a padlock and chain around the handle, Francine understands that she has to hunt around for a key to open it and find her way down to the lower floors. Francine closes her eyes, hoping that she would wake up from this nightmare, wishing that she was anywhere else right now. Upon opening her eyes, Francine finds herself back in yet another unknown corridor. At least here there are a few candles still lit, giving her some semblance of light and comfort. Francine begins walking down the corridor, hoping to find the key she needs for the gate. While walking aimlessly, Francine becomes lightheaded again and she stumbles over something, almost falling into the wall, stopping herself by catching the wall with her right hand. She looks down to see what made her stumble. She appears to have knocked over an old worn cricket bat. She crouches down and picks it up, then stands up once more, examining the bat. Unable to figure out what a cricket bat is doing lying around a corridor, she places it back down, standing it up against the wall. She checks the corridor behind her to make sure she hasn't accidentally knocked anything else over, and when she's satisfied, she checks to make sure the cricket bat is in a stable position, like how it was before she knocked it over. But the bat has seemingly disappeared. She then checks her left hand and has only just realised the birth certificate documents she had collected have essentially disappeared as well. On the move again, Francine reaches the end of the corridor and turns the corner to find herself at yet another unfamiliar corridor. This corridor is full of paintings. These paintings she can actually recognise. Most of them were of fruit, but some depicted farming or a town. Francine admires the paintings and feels quite comfortable when looking at them, until she notices one just to the left of her, which seemed very out of place. This one wasn't even a painting, but a small photograph that hung from the wall. It depicted a young man standing with a cricket bat, perhaps the same one she had seen in the previous corridor. Something about this photograph made Francine feel uneasy, as if she was being pressured into eating something she didn't like very much. Finally, a memory comes back to her. It's not a particularly important memory, but she remembers that green beans give her the same discomfort as this image. Waiting behind Francine is a door, one she forgot about while being enthralled by the paintings in front of her. Wanting to get away from that photograph, Francine turns around and tried the door handle. It quickly creaked open. The room seems to have a single candle lit on the far side. It's a small room, so one candle is enough to see. Francine enters the room and closes the door so she didn't have to see that photograph whenever she turned around. Inside the small room, there appears to be several pieces of jewellery and jewellery boxes laid out on the table. Some of them were in perfect condition, while some of them seemed worse for wear or even broken. She finds this one necklace wrapped around a bust of the neck, collarbone and shoulders. It wasn't a very extravagant necklace, but it was a beautiful locket. A fine golden chain met in the middle for a large golden panel and a small blue gem. Francine unclipped the gem, and opened the necklace up like a door. Inside there was an image of a young woman with dark long hair, tied with a bow in the centre. She wore a gentle smile and a beautiful dress, adorned with frills and a floral pattern. Francine closed the locket and smiled. She had no idea who this woman was, but her gentle smile gave her comfort. Francine stands up and walks over to the door, deciding to move forward and find the key. Bracing herself for that uncomfortable photograph waiting on the other side of the door, Francine takes a deep breath and opens the door. She looks directly forwards, shocked to see that the photograph is gone. She looks around the wall, but she can't find it anywhere. She can still see the image in her mind. She shakes her head and turns around to close the door behind her, but she also notices that the locket she was just admiring has also vanished. Believing this all to be a hallucination or dream, Francine continues on. There's something lonely about these items disappearing. I seem to be able to remember these bits and pieces from what I find, but I can't make sense of it. Just as she thinks this, a light tapping sound appears to resonate across the corridor. Unsettled by this, Francine hesitantly looks around. She notices a window with raindrops sticking to the outside of it. It's only a downpour, she thinks to herself, until she sees a flash of lightning and hears a roar of thunder. The sudden flash scares Francine, almost making her jump out of her skin. It takes a few moments, but Francine manages to calm herself down. She continues to search for the key. Continuing down the corridor, Francine turns yet another corner. This time she recognises the corridor from earlier. It's the first one she went down upon arriving to this strange place. She notices that one of the doors was slightly opened. She doesn't remember the door being open, so she decides to investigate it. It leads to a room with a bath and some cabinets inside. It's quite dark, but Francine takes a look around anyway. She looks into the bath, opens some drawers, and checks the cabinets. When she was younger, first aid kits would sometimes be placed in cabinets like these, so she has a good route around inside the cabinets. While fumbling around inside one of the cabinets, she comes across a cold metallic object. She pulls it out and inspects it. It's a key of some sort, perhaps the one that opens the gate. Filled with joy that she might finally be able to leave, Francine turns around and leaves the room so she can find the gate. Upon exiting the room, Francine is shocked to find the gate leading to the stairwell just down the corridor. Does she just loop around? Francine carries the key to the gate, and once there, she inserts the key. Before she can turn the key, the gate fades away, as if it wasn't even there at all. Before she can react, she begins to hear a voice. She can't quite make it out. Sounds like it's coming from down the stairs, so she holds tight onto the railing as she walks down to the floor below. While walking, her vision begins to blur and the voice becomes more clear. Don't bother feeding her. She has been so uncooperative today. At least she's unconscious. That makes our lives easier. Francine reaches the end of the stairs, her eyesight returning to normal and no longer able to hear the voice. Upon reaching the bottom, she notices that the stairwell leading down to the first floor is also blocked off by a gate. Another key is required to get out of this horrible place.